What's going on, everybody? This is Emerald Knight Leon back with another deck analysis. Today we're actually looking at a deck that I personally love is DarkKnightmon. And there are quite a few cards. Most people that I personally know don't run this deck the way I do, where I'm capitalizing on every Monitomon that exists. I have Monita for days. And when it pops off on the Monitas, it can be very funny because you're searching your deck for everything at that point. And I'll explain how that works. So starting off with our Digi-Eggs, we are running 2 copies of Monimon from BT10. While this Digimon has Twilight in its traits, it gets plus 1000. This card can be replaced with either an extra Pagumon or a extra Digimon that I'll cover in a bit. But in case you don't have all of your materials that you need, having the Monimon, say if you are putting a Skull Knightmon over here, digivolving into that on the Monimon, and then placing the Deadly Axemon from this under it to digivolve into either of your DarkKnightmons, you'll gain a total of 3,000 off of just that alone. Specifically, if you're going with this DarkKnightmon from BT10, as it is considered Twilight, whereas the BT7 DarkKnightmon is only considered a Dark Knight. Moving into outside of Pagumon, of course, reveal top card of your deck on deletion. If it's a black Digimon, goes to your hand. Otherwise, goes to the bottom. Moving on, though, as I was just saying, to our level 3s, we are running 4 copies of each Monitamon here. These are the BT5 Monitamon, BT7 Monitamon, and the new BT10 Monitamon. Along with that, we're running 2 copies of Starter Deck 13 Chikurimon. This is mainly if you don't have your pieces to Digicross just yet. This can be a good card to fall back on, as if you're going against Crossheart or Blue Flare, they're going to have to expend something or use some sort of card in order to get rid of it, and that's going to have them waste a turn more often than not. Moving on to our Monitamons, though. Let's start with BT5 Monitamon here. On play, look at the top card of your deck. We don't care about playing him. We want to digivolve him into our raising for a specific reason, and that's his on-deletion effect. More often than not, we're going to actually combine his on-deletion effect with Pagumon here. If you have seen my old D-Brigade video, I used a similar technique where I would specifically want to have my searching Commandramon on top of Pagumon, where I'll trigger Pagumon's on deletion first to reveal the top card. More often than not, that lets me move cards around, so I'm more often to get the Commandramon. In this case, we're doing the same thing because Monita's on deletion effect reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. You may play one Monitamon among them without paying its memory cost. The remaining go to the bottom. So it's exactly like your Commandramon. So you're going to use Pagu first. Best case scenario, you get a free card. Worst case scenario, it's not a card. It won't go to your hand, but it will go to the bottom of your deck, which gives you more room to find a Monitamon. And that goes into our other 2 Monitamons. BT7's Monitamon on play, reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, add 1 card with Knightmon in its name, or Deadly Axemon. So this lets us search a wide variety. We can search any of our Skull Knightmons or our Deadly Axemon or even our DarkKnightmons. And that just gives us a lot of room to search. And then even better, if we land into our BT10 Monitamon, we reveal the top 4 cards of our deck and then add 2 cards that are either black with Knightmon or Deadly Axemon, like BT7's Monitamon, or have Twilight in their traits. So that means we can search for things like Immortal Ruler or Nene. And Nene is the backbone of this deck. Nene is going to let us do a lot of things and keep a wide board that our opponent will have trouble getting into our security because of. Moving into our level 4s, we're running 3 copies of Skull Knightmon Mighty Axe Mode. Mighty Axe Mode is treated as a Deadly Axemon and a Skull Knightmon. So if Mighty Axe is on the field, he can be treated as Deadly Axe when used to Digicross into DarkKnightmon here. And the same goes for a lot of our Skull Knightmons, specifically this one and Cavalry mode. They both have the same effect. Mighty Axe mode also can be Digicrossed off of a Skull Knightmon and Deadly Axemon. In the case of this, his on-play effect is reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. Add 1 card with Knightmon in its name, Deadly Axemon, or Nene, a mono from those choices to your hand, and then trash the remaining cards. Then, if you Digicrossed with 2 materials, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with a play cost of 4 or less. This isn't going to stop Solar or Chikiri, sadly. Well, technically, yeah, you could. You won't be able to reduce the play cost, at least to my knowledge, until after. That really then depends on how the chaining works. So, correct me if I'm wrong. Best case scenario is I'm right, and then you Digicross into Skull Knightmon. It's a 4 cost, and you delete the Solar or Chikuri, and then it reduces the cost, which is probably not the case, sadly. In that regard, then it just becomes a regular 4 cost, and you don't get the reducage, but you do kill off the Solar or the Chikurimon. Or the Psychemon if you're going against purple. Moving on, though, we are running 4 copies of BT7 Skull Knightmons. This is the bread and butter. This is what you want, because you want the extra security attack. The security attack is very crucial in shutting the game down as fast as possible, and you want to see this. You want to either be able to Digivolve into it onto your Monita to trigger its effect when attacking, to take Deadly Axe from your field to go into either of your DarkKnightmons here. Or you want to Digicross with this in order to get your DarkKnightmon from BT10. Preferably you want to do this with the BT7 Deadly Axemon, because these are the only 2 that have a inherited. Otherwise, you can do it with the others. That said, it does have the when attacking, as I mentioned, where you may trash all the Digivolution cards of one of your Deadly Axemon and place it in at the bottom of this Digimon's Digivolution cards to Digivolve it into a DarkKnightmon in your hand without paying its memory cost, which is really great, because at that point you're swinging, you Digivolve, and for free, and you'll be able to just go in for 2 checks right then and there. And you'll preferably be able to get the plus 2,000, if not 3,000 if you're on top of the Monitomon, and it's the BT10 DarkKnightmon. Moving on, we have Deadly Axemon. Deadly Axemon we are running 3 copies of. It's a very good searcher. Reveal the top 5 cards of your deck. Add up to 2 cards with Knightmon in their name among them to your hand. Place the remaining cards at the bottom of your deck in any order. This lets us look at Skull Knightmon Mighty Axe mode, Skull Knightmon Cavalry mode, DarkKnightmon, and DarkKnightmon X Antibody. We can search all of these with this single Deadly Axe. If you really wanted to, you could cut down the Mighty Axe into 2 and put the Deadly Axe to 4. Which, honestly, more power to you. You want to see this? Sure, great. You're going to get a lot of searching after that. This was at 3 specifically because it does trash some cards, and you would be able to use Immortal Ruler in conjunction with this if you're able to trash a DarkKnightmon. Moving on. We are running 2 copies of Skull Knightmon Cavalry mode. Normally, we're not going into him for the jamming and blocker. We are really just using him because it's a 4 cost. And it is a 1 cost to Evo on a level 4, which is nice. It's very nice. And if you are lacking Twilight cards, then he can be a good safe blocker. Moving on to our level 5s. We have DarkKnightmon from BT10. This, you want to run it at 4. You need to run it at 4 because you want to see him. The only reason I run this BT7 DarkKnightmon at 2 is because I happen to have 2 alt arts of it. And they look beautiful. Okay? But moving on. DarkKnightmon from BT10. It is a Twilight. It has Twilight in its traits. On play, de-digivolve one of your opponent's Digimon. Then, if you digicrossed with 2 materials, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with a play cost of 5 or less. This is very nice if you want to try to check your opponent. All turns, when this Digimon would be deleted by returning one level 4 or lower black Digimon from this card's Digivolution sources to your hand, you may play one DarkKnightmon or Deadly Axemon from this Digimon's Digivolution cards without paying its memory cost. So, how this will work is if he dies, either from taking an opponent's hit or going into security, you would preferably want to send this DarkKnightmon back to your hand, because then you can play this Deadly Axemon or this DarkKnightmon in order to search for another DarkKnightmon. Preferably, again, you want to use the BT7. It just covers more ground with its searching potential. Moving on, though, we do have DarkKnightmon from BT7. On play, you may place one DarkKnightmon and or one Deadly Axemon from your hand or trash under this Digimon as its Digivolution cards, in any order. And then all turns, when this Digimon is deleted, you may play one DarkKnightmon and or one Deadly Axemon from this Digimon's Digivolution cards suspended without paying their memory cost. Again, just further searching for your DarkKnightmons if you're running this Deadly Axe and this Mighty Axe mode. Finally, on to our level 6s, we are running 4 copies of DarkKnightmon X Antibody. This is a really nice card because it is used to counteract a lot of the other Digicrossing decks. The reason for this, it's a 4 cost onto a DarkKnightmon, 5 cost otherwise, but that doesn't matter because you're going to be only running DarkKnightmon as your level 5s. When Digivolving, return one black or purple Digimon card other than DarkKnightmon X Antibody from your trash to your hand. Then if DarkKnightmon or X Antibody is in this Digimon's Digivolution cards, delete one Tamer and unsuspend this Digimon. This is really nice because you'll be able to delete cards such as Taiki or Kiriha or Uamano, all of which are Tamers that specifically let you suspend them to use Digimon that are under your Tamers for Digicrossing. So you want to kill those things off as fast as you can. Or you could target Tamers that have a lot of Digimon under them so that your opponent can't use those as materials. It's not going to matter for you, Amano, since he can take stuff from trash, but it will be very useful otherwise. Let's see. Wait. As I am recording this right now, I come to realize I made a slight error in what I said. Uamano does not take things from trash. It does take things from under your Tamers to be put into Digimon's Digivolution cards. I am very sorry about that. Moving on. On to our option cards. We're running 2 copies of Ultimate Flare, 4 copies of Pride Memory Boost, and 2 copies of Immortal Ruler. Ultimate Flare can easily be taken out for, say, Iron Fisted Onslaught, or even Gewalt Schwarmer. Personally, I would say Iron Fisted Onslaught or Ultimate Flare are the better choices. Ultimate Flare because it de-digivolves by 3, and if you're hitting a Digimon that was Digicrossed, odds are they're going to hit a 4 cost, a level 4, or a 3, and that's going to just ruin their day, because odds are they're going to die. Iron Fisted Onslaught will just kill them outright, but in the case that you are hitting something that has Armor Purge, like if for some reason your opponent is running X4B or X5B in their Shoutmon deck, you will be able to prevent them from Armor Purging. Pride Memory Boost is the bread and butter, in the same vein as DarkKnightmon is the bread and butter. Why is Pride Memory Boost at a 4 in this deck? Simple. Everything in here outside of DarkKnightmons can be played off of Pride Memory Boost. Reveal top 3 cards of your deck. You may play one black Digimon card with a play cost of 4 or less among them without paying its memory cost. Trash the remaining. We got a 3 cost, 3 cost, 3 cost, 3 cost, 4, 4, 4, 4. every one of our rookies and champions can be played off of Pride Memory Boost, and it has a delay effect of gain 2 memory. So if you wanted to go into your DarkKnightmon X Antibody and still go in for a swing, there's your choice. There's your answer. Moving on, we have Immortal Ruler. Now, Immortal Ruler can be played as long as you have Nene, because then you don't have to worry about color requirements. There are certain purple cards that I will mention that could be teched into this deck. Trash the top 3 cards of your deck. Then you may play 1 DarkKnightmon from your trash for its play cost. If you play a Digimon card with Digicross requirements by this effect, you may also place cards from your trash in this Digivolution card for a Digicross. So, if you were to use this card in order to play this DarkKnightmon, and you had the Skulls, Knightmon, and Deadly Axes in your trash, you can use that to play it and then reduce its cost to 4 instead of 8. Which is very nice. And then also, you'll be able to get the on-play effect of de-digivolving and killing off a Digimon with a play cost of 5 or less. What more needs to be said? It's not always the optimal choice because you need to have the DarkKnightmon in trash to do this. So make sure you have it before you use Immortal Rule. That's why it's run at 2 instead of a 4. You take the 2 out of here to play the Ultimate Flare. Otherwise, it would be a 4/4. But you want some board clearing potential with Ultimate Flare. On to finally our Tamers. We were running 4 copies of Nene Amano and 2 copies of Izzy. Izzy is our memory setter. He is going to basically put us to 3 no matter what. And we can basically play him for a 3 cost because every card in this deck is black. So, he's just a 3 cost at that point. So if you have him at the start of your turn, you Digivolve him Raising, preferably into this Monitomon here. And then you just play Izzy. It becomes a 3 cost instead of a 4. Nene, on the other hand, is a 3 cost, and it searches. Reveal top 4 cards of your deck, add 1 card with Knightmon or Deadly Axemon in its name, or Twilight in its traits. Among them to your hand, place the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. Opponent's turn. All of your Digimon with DarkKnightmon in their name, or Twilight in their traits, gain blocker. This is really good, because that means your DarkKnightmon from BT10, BT7, and X Antibody now have blocker, including Mighty Axe Mode now has blocker, including BT10 Monitomon now has blocker. That is 5 total cards that will now have blocker, and that is really good. It basically lets you have a lot of it lets you build up a board, essentially, that your opponent can't always get through. Yes, there are ways they can get through. Crimson Wave is a prime example of this, but that really only comes up if you're going against Black War Greymon or Crossheart. Unless somehow they teched in a Matt and Sora into a Blue Flare deck to play Crimson Wave. That's a possibility. However, this does give us a lot of potential. And if your opponent is trying to delete your Tamers, say with a Omnimon's Wart, or if you're against Black War Grey and they delete it with Black War Grey or Megadramon, you're going to gain 2 memory off of Nene because of her on-deletion effect, which will immediately pass turn, and if you're able to, you can just wreck them that way by making sure that they can't go into their level 6s or their level 6s won't stay on board for long. So that is it with the deck. On to cards that you could tech in. There are actually quite a few, depending on how you want to play this deck. A lot of people that I've seen do run Toyagumon, Chikurimon, and Chumon. Chumon, self-explanatory. Your opponent won't be able to gain memory, except with Tamer effects. This is actually really good if you're going against Blue Flare because of Blazing Memory Boost. Chikurimon, if it comes out as security, will de-digivolve one of your opponent's Digimon. So if they were to, say, have Digicrossed into a Shoutmon X4, swing into security, hit this, that's de-digivolve. They won't get their end of battle effect. And then Toy Agumon, if you're basically digivolving your way into DarkKnightmon through the BT7 Skull Knightmon's effect, he's going to have reboot along with the blocker. In these cases, Kapurimon, Tumblemon, and Starter Deck 5 Kapuri can be useful. BT2 Kapuri because while this Digimon has reboot, it gains 1000 during your turn. Whereas Kapuri from BT Starter Deck 5, during your turn, if it has blocker, it gains 1000. But I prefer, if you're really banking on the blocker, Tumble is better because it's a plus 1000 during your opponent's turn. So that'll work better with Nene. Otherwise, if you are running a lot of Monitas and you don't want to run the Monimon, Sumemon here is great because you're running rookies all of the same name. They're going to get plus 2000 if they have Sumemon under it. So that'll up the survivability of some of your Monitomons, and it will let you be more comfortable with playing one of the other two Monitas that doesn't have the on-deletion effect onto Sumemon. As for your level 4s, Grumblemon being a hybrid is useful, but also High Vision Monitamon if you want to be weird or cheeky, really. By digicrossing 3 Monitamons, you're basically getting a free level 4 off of this. And it does have 7000 DP, which is not it's actually not bad. Problem with it is it's a very vanilla card, sadly. It has no effects, it has no inheritables. It does, however, give you a free champion that you could then just digivolve into your DarkKnightmon for, if needed. Preferably, this would be used with the BT7 DarkKnightmon, as the on-deletion effect of the BT10 DarkKnightmon, if it did not survive, wouldn't occur. And the same goes for the other one. Honestly, the reason High Vision Monitamon could be used is basically it would let you warp your way into your DarkKnightmon X antibody. Moving on, a lot of cards people do play is Death Xmon, especially during matchups against, say, Blue Flare and Crossheart. Crossheart especially. If your opponent has enough stuff going for him or her, and they got like 5-6 Tamers, you can make Death X free at that point. It doesn't matter. Other cards I would recommend. Millenniummon, because it does let you bounce an opponent's Digimon back to the bottom of their deck, regardless of if they're suspended or if they have Digivolution cards. So if your opponent has that X5 going for him, or that Metal Greymon, and you just wanna ruin their day, just send that X5 or Metal Grey back to the bottom of their deck. All those materials they just used, gone. Goodbye. And finally, another card, Omnimon Zwart. Now, yes, you could run Zwart Defeat. You could run him because you can then delete another Tamer. I don't personally have him. I'm not showing him here because of that. When digivolving, trash top 3 cards of your deck, again. And then you can play up to 2 black or purple Digimon with play costs of 8 or less from your trash without paying their memory costs. Let's take a look at this. We can play basically everything from level 3 to 5 because of this. And we can play 2. So if we wanted, we could play 2 DarkKnightmons here. That's an option. Or we'd play the BT7 DarkKnightmon so that we can get our on-play effect to go off. And then also, when attacking, you may return 1 level 6 Digimon in this Digimon's Digivolution cards to your hand to delete one of your opponent's unsuspended Digimon with a play cost of 12 or less. That's really great. As for option cards, let's talk about Tamers first. If you're banking on more of the blocker element, the BT2 Tai is a very good card. All of your black Digimon will get plus 1000 DP during your opponent's turn. So it makes them more capable of surviving if you're running 2, because that's just an extra 2000. It is a 4 cost though, and there's no way to mitigate that, sadly. There isn't. If we had a black version of Sunrise Buster, that would be great. You'd be running 4 of that in order to play as many of these guys as possible. Otherwise, Izzy and Joe is a great card, because oftentimes your opponent might have more than one Digimon in play. So get an extra 2 memory, and then since you're blocking a lot, you would be able to get its effect of opponent's turn. When one of your black Digimon is deleted, you can suspend this Tamer to trigger draw 1. Other cards I would recommend, Mimi and Kari. Kari because you would gain a memory every time your opponent, when your opponent tries to go for your security stack by suspending her. And then Mimi, if you're running a lot of option cards, this can make them cheaper. Pride Memory Boost can essentially go to a 3 cost if you're running 1 Mimi, 2 cost if you're running 2. If you're running 3 Mimis, you can make a Pride Memory Boost a 1 cost, which is great. However, now moving on to our option cards, Defense Plugin C, because it can basically turn any of our Digimon into a blocker and give them reboot. Iron Fisted Onslaught, for reasons we've already stated. Black Memory Boost, because it can search out everything in the deck, including our DarkKnightmon X Antibody. Back for Revenge is a card I like. Essentially, you would want to put him on your DarkKnightmon or your DarkKnightmon X Antibody. The reason for this is then you have 2 on-deletion effects. This will now make it so that when, say, for example, if we were to use it on DarkKnightmon X Antibody, and he gets killed during that turn, we activate DarkKnightmon X Antibodies on deletion first to play DarkKnightmon from our trash without paying its cost. And then we use Back for Revenge's on deletion effect in order to play DarkKnightmon X Antibody for no cost. The reason you want to run it that way is because if you use Back for Revenge's effect first, the DarkKnightmon X Antibodies on deletion effect will no longer be capable of going off because DarkKnightmon X Antibody is no longer in trash. So that is something you want to be aware of. Funny story about Back for Revenge. Back during BT6, I originally was going to build a Gabubon deck that ran Back for Revenge and Mimi. The idea behind that deck was that if you were to use Back for Revenge, you would be able to go into Gabubon early in the game. If you still had 5 security, you would be able to go into Gabubon, get your swings off. It lives great. Then use Back for Revenge to pass turn. Because Gabubon's effect now goes off, it dies because you still have security cards. And then Back for Revenge's effect will go off, letting you play Gabubon again from your trash for no cost on that same turn. And at that point, you now have Gabubon that can still bounce your opponent's Digimon back to their hand or even deck. And that adds a lot of early aggression. Unfortunately, by the time I came to this realization, it was already swinging into the EX1 meta. And yeah, I never was able to really get the testing and get it off. And I didn't even have my channel back then. But food for thought. Other cards you could run is Demonic Disaster. Its security effect, unfortunately, is not useful because you're not running purple Digimon. You could if you wanted. If you wanted to run Psychmon, sure. But yeah, no. Basically, if you would want to use this on your X Antibody because he's a purple Digimon. It lets you get a second swing off, essentially. And then also, Pandemonium Flame is a great card because you can just delete any of your Digimon to delete any of your opponent's unsuspended Digimon with a level less than or equal to the deleted Digimon. You would want to use this on, say, your DarkKnightmon over here in order to kill off, say, a Shoutmon X5. And then you would be able to get DarkKnightmon's on deletion effect in order to play Deadly Axemon for the searching potential and then just end your turn with Digicrossing again. And then finally, Reinforcement Plugin O. Basically, it can just be played if you have a Tamer in play, and one of your Digimon gets plus 3,000 until the end of your opponent's turn. If you wanted to use that for an extra bulky blocker, great. That is it for this video, though. When this deck goes off, it goes off really hard. It's really easy to get all of the pieces you need within the first few turns of your game if you get a good amount of Monitomons. I understand why people would run cards like the Toyagu and the Chumon and the Chikuri, but just the triple Monita, it can really make it work. But that is it for this deck analysis. If I were to rate this deck, it's not going to... It's going to stop things if you get lucky. and if your opponent bricks really badly. Otherwise, it can not always work in my own testing. Your opponent, if it gets off early and your opponent is bricking, it can beat things even like Alphamon. But in the Alphamon matchup, if your opponent gets what they need, there's no way you can survive, sadly. I wish. I got crushed in an Alphamon matchup running this. But I was able to even beat Jessmon with this deck. Which to me that felt good. Because I have some issues with Jessmon that I will get in on another day when I cover Jessmon. But again, that is it for this deck analysis. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you think about this deck. Are you using DarkKnightmon? Are you coming up with any, unique ways of running it? I want to hear about that. I really love analyzing these things. So please let me know. I will see you all in the next video. Peace.